With the addition of landless gameplay in the Road to Power DLC, Paradox added a few landless starting characters, including the Normans, before there was a Normandy. Master Hrothulr, supposedly of Normandy, is a Norse Asatru that starts in Denmark and has some pretty useful martial traits. What I set out to do was to stay as an Asatru, travel around the world while building an unstoppable army, before returning to Western Europe to conquer England. This turned out to be not as simple as I thought it would be. I started by turning my camp into a mercenary company and I immediately started mugging people. It seems this is by far the best way to earn money in the early game, because mugging contracts not only give you money for successfully completing them, but also during the contract, random events will pop up allowing you to mug individual characters for 50 gold each time. Having earned myself a bit of a reputation as an outlaw, the chief whose lands I was camping in demanded I leave within 3 months. Instead of complying, I hired some men-at-arms. Let him try and arrest me now. The first men-at-arms I hired were the Varangian veterans, because they are powerful and unique to our culture. When the local contracts were exhausted, I started moving towards Constantinople, upgrading my camp along the way. In Constantinople, I adopted Greek culture, as this would give me access to powerful men-at-arms regiments. I continued going east, fighting as a mercenary in the Persian struggle for power. There, Hrothulr died from a wound, but his successor was decently competent, and it wasn't a problem. Traveling across the Persian desert was extremely dangerous, particularly because I became trapped in them by a major plague. But I made it out eventually, and I was finally in India. After only a couple of years of doing contracts for the local Rajas, one of them gave me a regiment of war elephants. And let me tell you, these bad boys can do some damage. Having got what I came to India for, and another plague having broken out near me, I started moving back west. The journey to Europe was rather uneventful. I was able to sail to Abyssinia, and from there to Egypt, and from Egypt to Greece. At this point I had built my army. I had 2 heavy infantry regiments, the Varangian veterans and the Huscarls from being a Norse Asatru. From being Greek, I had the Balistrae for archers, Acritae for skirmishers, Skultatoi for spearmen, and Cataphracts for heavy cavalry. And of course, there was the regiment that had no basic equivalent, the mighty war elephants. Slowly I moved towards England. After earning enough renown to launch a kingdom-level invasion, I attacked. My character was getting on in years, but he was a powerful guy at this point, and he had a few years left in him. And as I was about to set sail for England, I took a stupid risk in a random event and got maimed at 5% chance to happen. That character died a short time later, and was succeeded by his son. Now, his son had some pretty good stats, but he was young and hadn't picked up any perks yet. That would prove to be important later. But for now, the invasion of England itself went smoothly enough. Whatever troops the enemy could muster up were stack-wiped by my awesome army and commander. Soon the war was won. But I was surprised to see that I didn't control all, or even most, of England. It turns out that with the Adventurer Invasion CB, the vassals of your target can break off and become independent. That left me controlling just one county in Mercia and the Duchy of Essex. I figured that just means that I'll need to conquer England bit by bit. But now that I was no longer an adventurer, I had to pay gold to upkeep my men-at-arms. And since both the peasants and the few vassals I had hated me for being a foreigner and a pagan, I had no income. But I did come to England with 4,000 gold in the bank, so I tried to take enough land and beat the locals into submission before the gold ran out. You might be thinking, why not reduce the size of my men-at-arms regiments or disband them completely until I could afford the upkeep? Well, I had traveled from one side of the map to the other to get this army, and I will not be reducing it. I will not be giving up my elephants. I came to regret this stance soon enough. I ran out of money before I was able to capture enough land. My glorious army was chipped away bit by bit as I was unable to reinforce them. Eventually it was decreased so much and I was so in debt that I couldn't stab wipe the AI anymore. And then I even started losing. My previous character had a bunch of perks that reduced army upkeep. That would have probably saved me, but it was not meant to be. I decided to give up on this run and try again. Okay, so what had I learned from my previous run? I don't really need the greatest army the world has ever seen to conquer England. Instead of becoming Greek and going on an odyssey to India, I'll stay in Europe. I'll still build up a powerful army, but it will be a reasonable one. For a few decades I took contracts, both criminal and legitimate, to gain money, prestige and provisions. Whenever I fought a war as a mercenary, I would make sure to be involved in as many battles as I could. Not just for the war participation, but to get fame and prestige from victories. I would even go out of my way to fight random raiders that had nothing to do with the war I was fighting. I was able to build a strong force pretty quickly now that I wasn't recruiting people from halfway around the planet. Since a lack of fame would be the main barrier preventing me from doing an invasion, I changed lifestyles from martial to diplo, for the prestige bonuses there. During that time, the King of Scotland got the Conqueror trait that was added with the DLC. This gave him some serious bonuses. He was able to take all of Great Britain and Ireland, and he reformed the Empire of Britannia. I was looking forward to our conflict when I became strong enough. One day I was hunting a criminal for the French king. I had failed to ambush him twice already, and my only real hope to capture him was to defeat him in a duel. That option was a bit too risky for me, so I recruited him instead. He would make a fine champion. That's when I noticed that the Emperor of Britannia had died, and his son was unable to hold the empire together. Britannia had shattered into dozens of independent duchies and counties. The time to strike was now. I invaded Mercia as it was the largest duchy and it would be a good base from which to conquer the rest of England. The invasion went well. As the Jarl of Mercia, I had a few Anglo-Saxon vassals that hated me. I simply ordered them to give up their titles despite not having a reason to revoke them. After crushing their little rebellion, I gave out their land to Norse Asatru characters that would be too grateful to me to care about a little tyranny. This time I was smart enough to decrease my men-at-arms regiments to something I could afford. And thanks to the Conquest CB from my faith, I could conquer England at my leisure. I started with Essex and I made London my capital. Pretty soon a crusade was called for England. They had more soldiers than me, but my character was a fantastic commander, and I had powerful men-at-arms. I was able to crush their armies one by one as they landed in England. At 86% war score, Hrolfr died. My second character was his 11-year-old grandson. Thankfully, I had already basically won the war, and the 11-year-old got to finish it, granting me some nice early legitimacy, prestige and piety for this character. And additionally, I was able to create the Kingdom of England immediately after winning the Crusade. Since my character was so young, I could make him into quite the martial character, although he did get an entrenched regency that I was only able to end 10 years after he became an adult. As soon as he came of age, I continued the conquest of England, and I didn't stop there. I took Wales and Scotland as well. When I had enough money, I could reform the Empire of Britannia. In the meantime, I captured the Asatru holy sites in Scandinavia, allowing me to reform my faith and become Valkyr. I now had access to holy wars and I could convert my realm to my religion, so that I can stop fighting peasant rebellions and finally get some real tax money. I even hybridized with the Anglo-Saxons to get out of the tribal era into the early medieval age. That's when the Second Crusade for England happened. And because Scandinavia was at this point completely converted to Christianity, England stands alone. What's worse, that's the time my character chose to die, causing Scotland and Wales to split off my kingdom. And my next character wasn't a great commander. I tried fighting them off. I was winning in the beginning, but as more and more Crusaders came ashore, I was eventually overwhelmed. So that was the second failure. If I wanted to conquer England as a Norse Asatru, I would need to change strategy. I can't just appear out of nowhere and invade the island and try to convert everyone to my culture and religion. I need a base of power from which to transform England to something I can rule over. Even the historical Normans had Normandy after all. Instead of invading England as an adventurer, I'll unite Scandinavia, reform Asatru, and then invade England. Alright, as soon as I have some soldiers, I'm gonna get me some land. There we go, I'm the Duke of Skane. Oh look, Denmark is vulnerable. Yoink! Who's Vladimir and what is he doing in Sweden? Oh well, that was weird, but Sweden and Norway are mine now. The Kingdom of Sapmi thinks it can stay independent. How cute. Hey, East Francia, I need a third holy site, so... I'm a heavier kingdom. The Falkir is in. Well, Middle Francia is smaller than East Francia, so I guess I might as well have that as well. I mean, I already ate 2 out of the 3 Francias, might as well finish the job. Okay, I think I'm ready to invade England now. Look at that, I already have a foothold, I just need to crush this Catholic peasant uprising and I can finish off England. Okay, that peasant uprising weakened me enough that some of my vassals are rebelling. I just need to defeat them and I can get back to England. Oh dear, the Catholics have launched a crusade for Germany. I'm sure I can see them off and get back to putting down my vassals so I can get back to invading England. So Crusader Germany is now a thing and I'm at war with all of my vassals. This was just a trial, it doesn't count. Don't worry though, Britannia was conquered. By the Welsh. Alright, that last one was a good strategy, I just got a little overconfident at the end there. Let's try that again. So, for my first contract I need to hunt down an outlaw and I recruit him as a follower. So far so good. I go to the local tavern, I convince someone to join my camp, and I marry her. I wonder if she had a say in the matter. I fight in a couple of wars, I party at my camp for the fame, and I romance my wife, because you get prestige when you successfully romance a spouse. I hunt for prestige, and I move to Poland for more contracts, and I take a regale court contract. I failed to romance my wife. She definitely didn't have a say in the matter. Eventually I became illustrious, and I invaded a duchy on the edge of Norway. The guy I was invading offered me money in exchange for a favor. I don't know what he was trying to do, but I took the money, gave him a favor, and conquered his home. From there I took territory up and down the coast. The few men-at-arms regiments led by my fantastic commander character were able to wipe the floor with anything I came across. Pretty soon I held enough of Norway to declare myself king, and my first kingly decree was to subjugate Denmark. After that I invaded Sweden, and my character died of old age. Thankfully I only had one heir, so both Norway and Denmark went with him. I was able to finish Sweden off easily. I took the heroic bloodline dynasty legacy for the legitimizing legend seed. I had an idea of what I wanted to do with it. I held a grand feast to ingratiate myself to my vassals. While I was holding court one time, I got an event I never saw before. In exchange for 100 gold, you could get rid of the holding holy sites requirement for reforming your faith. This was extremely lucky, as now I don't have to go beyond Scandinavia to reform Asatru, but I was not ready to do it yet. I did still want to unite Scandinavia, and for that I needed more land than just the Norse part of it. So I took a few duchies in Finland and Sapmi, which was renamed to the Kingdom of Uppland. After that I was able to form the Empire of Scandinavia, and all I needed to reform the Asatru faith was more piety, as well as the prophet work. So while I was waiting for that, I figured I might as well invade France. France was ruled by the Kingdom of Brittany. De jure Brittany is one duchy kingdom, and the King of Brittany and France controls almost all of it. Having learned from my previous attempt, the trial run, I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. Instead of actually invading France and potentially getting stuck with a lot of angry Catholics, I used the Kingdom Invasion CB on Brittany. And because I'll get to keep any counties I occupy, I landed on Normandy. I besieged the castles there, one by one, moving towards Brittany. I had to fight off the Britannian army a few times, but I had so much levy, it wasn't a problem. Eventually, when I occupied all of Normandy and crushed their army a bunch of times, The war score was still around 0 because I hadn't actually occupied any of the target land, and the enemy got a bunch of ticking war score. As soon as I sieged down one castle in Brittany proper, my war score shot up to 100%. Because I occupied all of Normandy and the enemy king controlled most of Brittany directly, all those counties went directly to my personal domain. They would be distributed to loyal vassals, but not before I established the Norman culture. Only my character and the counties in Normandy became Norman. But that's okay, our culture will spread to the rest of the empire over time. The important thing for us is that we left the tribal era. During the war in France, I gathered enough piety to reform my faith. I didn't change it too much. I replaced the warmonger tenant with the pursuit of power tenant. It does basically the same thing, except you don't get the at peace negative opinion with your vassals. I made adultery of all kind accepted because I don't like constantly getting those messages like, "Oh no, your cousin cheated on your nephew with your grandma," or whatever. I made us fundamentalist instead of pluralist to make it easier to get rid of infidels from our realm. And I made the head of faith be a temporal title, making me the Falkir. Since the start of this run, England was unified under the House of Essex, and Ireland was taken over by a Norse Old Asatru conqueror. He was now expanding into Great Britain. Well, I wasn't about to let him take England before me, so I declared a great holy war for England. Sieging down enough castles to get 100% war score took a while. It shouldn't have, because I was now Norman and I had access to siege weapons, but I forgot about that. Still, eventually I won the war, though not before that guy in Ireland took York. I redistributed the English counties to randomly generated Norman Asatru, and because we were now an organized faith, they were able to relatively quickly convert the population from Catholic. I had to crush a couple of Catholic peasant uprisings, but it was so easy I almost forgot about them. Remember when I took that legitimizing legend seed? Well, I started spreading it a while ago, and now I was able to upgrade it to level 3. That gave me the option to instantly make England the jure part of Scandinavia. And as a little treat, I was able to build the Buckingham Palace. Now, this character is getting old, and what good is all this if it's just gonna collapse as soon as he dies? Would I be able to hold on to power with the next character? Well, for a while I was grooming one of my sons to take over, and I was relatively happy with the result. But then he went and hit his head or something and became incapable. But his son is only a baby, and he will become the next heir after his father dies. That way I was able to raise him to be the best Asatru warrior I could. I even made him have virtues for all 3 personality traits. Brave, wrathful, vengeful. I never saw that before. And when Falkir Erikr I died, Falkir Erikr II was ready to take over. And yeah, I think he would be able to hold the empire together.